Good evening and good morning, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Can it be both?
Yes, well, depending on where you're standing on the timeline.
That's
This is
true.
Jon Massengale. That was Jonathan Green, and Bob Varsha is with us. We are going to get you ready for the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix. Chris Medland is going to be joining us. He probably won't join us in the pre-show, but he has sent us some interviews, and he'll be joining us in the post-race show. You might have seen Chris. He's doing a little TV work this weekend. But yeah, as far as what he sent us to, we got some great interviews. We've got interviews with Christian Horner. We've got interviews with Io Komatsu, Bradley Lord of Mercedes, who's basically filling in for Toto Wolff this weekend, who's not there. And we have a really fascinating interview with Graham Loudon, who's the team principal of the Cadillac.
Yeah,
F1
I'm
team.
interested to hear that.
Yeah, and he talks about drivers, specifically about some American drivers too. So we got a lot to talk about, and we got about an hour to get you ready for the Japanese Grand Prix. But I think we have to start with the lap by Max Verstappen. But Bob Varsha, I'm going to start with you first. You've seen a lot more of these laps than me. What did you think of that lap from Max Verstappen?
Well, it was spectacular, dare I say, Senna-like.
Yeah.
Because, well, actually, it's even better than that because Senna had arguably the best car on the grid when he was working this kind of pole magic, and Verstappen clearly does not. So the fact that he and his engineer, Jean-Pierre Lambiase, and the team were able to work that car into a condition where Max could work his unquestioned skills and come through, granted, not by much, but that's what makes qualifying exciting. And the gaps actually down the grid are very, very close. But, that's the Formula One we've come to know in the last year or two. So this is all very cool. Keep in mind, this is the first pole for the four-time world champion since Austria last year. Would you have guessed that?
No.
I wouldn't.
I would not have, but I saw that stat. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to believe, right?
Yeah, and I'll follow up on what Bob just said, which is, yeah, he's right. It was Senna-esque in a Ford McLaren, if you know what I mean, because that car was not the best on the grid at the time.
Schumacher, you could say the same thing at times, right? Doing the same thing in a car that wasn't the best in the field.
No, often. Yeah, that really is a really great way to judge drivers. You notice as John Lacey when they're in a Tyrrell. You notice, guys coming up in a Toro Rosso, back in the day type of thing. So, yeah, I think that's why Beerman today, and Beerman especially today in that Haas, given the problems they had in Australia, really, really impressive. And all the rookies, to be honest. Antonelli, it's a sort of story that's gone missing, as it were. But Antonelli was 2/10 off Russell in perfect conditions, in a decent car, and it's only the third Grand Prix.
Yeah. All right, going back to Verstappen, I want to play the team radio that you don't hear Max talk like this, right?
No,
Normally, he doesn't.
He's almost sarcastic.
Well,
isn't
think
he?
about it. How this contrasts to the Simply Lovelies that we were getting,
which is obviously an inside joke.
But let's hear Max Verstappen after this pole.
Pole position. Yes, let's go! Wow, what a lap! Yes, guys. What a lap! What a lap, Max! Unbelievable. You've done it. Wait, wow. Yeah, I'm really happy. Wow. Pure class, mate.
That's just, like I said, the contrast to what he's normally been doing. It's just amazing.
Kidding. And
That's
his
me,
41st one, as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
To me, that's the voice and the emotion of a guy who knows he stepped over the limit more than once and got away with it.
And also,
even a Max Verstappen, with all he's done, can be impressed when he goes just that little bit farther, and where angels fear to tread, and came away with the pole.
I thought it was very interesting. You've got Alonso's interview, but in the post-qualifying, Alonso said only he can do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we can hear that later. But yeah, Bob, and also, part of that emotion probably is saying to everyone, look, I wasn't confident with the car, and look what I did with it, and so it's just really, really pretty amazing. And I think it's no doubt that Max is in a class of his own right now in Formula One. So we also have, let's go ahead and play the first interview we got from Chris Medland, because he got to catch up with Christian Horner. This was probably about an hour ago. But the discussion was everything from what's about to happen, but to Max's pole position. So let's hear from Christian Horner.
Christian, thanks so much for your time before a very busy race day. But let's start with Saturday. How special was that lap from Max Verstappen?
That was an incredible lap. I think it was certainly one of the very best of Max's career, and he dragged every ounce of performance out of the car, and it was against our expectations after P1, P2, P3. I think he, with his engineering team, had turned the car upside down in terms of setup, and even during qualifying were still tuning out laps and final settings. So outstanding, and to have got that pole position, his fourth in the row here, was a great morale boost for the team also.
I was going to say, it must be so motivating for you, the team, energising to have someone with that talent who sometimes can pull something like that out.
Look, I mean, we know we've got performance to find with this car. We know that McLaren's they have a better car than us at the moment. Mercedes is showing some form as well. So, we know we've got performance to find, but there's great strength and depth in this team, and a performance like that is a shot of adrenaline that runs throughout the organisation.
Can he replicate it over a race distance today? It's a bit greasy right now, but looks like it'll dry up.
I think it'll be dry. I mean, let's see. I mean, the McLarens are very, very fast, and there's two of them against one of our cars. So, they've got the ability to split strategies, that kind of thing. So, it's Max and Suzuka, and we'll do our very best to try and keep him in that position.
Just finally, 2 against 1, you say. You did make the big driver change ahead of this race. Yuki starts in 14th. What are you expecting from him, and what have you seen from him so far this weekend?
I think in terms of what we've seen so far, it's been very encouraging. I mean, his P1, P2 is Q1, where he's within a tenth of Max. Unfortunately, he had a mistake in Q2, but that's up until that point, I thought he'd been very, very strong, giving very good feedback. I think he settled into the team very well initially, and you can just tell he's got a bunch of experience behind him and knows what he wants. So, and he's given us some interesting comparisons, obviously, between the car that he stepped out of. So, hopefully, in front of a home crowd, if he could get a point or two today, would be fantastic.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
2 things on fire this weekend: the track and the world champ.
Yeah. I liked what he said about turning the car upside down. He said,
yes,
the team. And I watched on F1 TV where he went into that, and he talked about weight distributions, aero balance, wing levels, roll bars, springs. What else is left?
I know.
I mean, that is.
I actually think that's part of the elation, is that Red Bull know they've got a not great car. And I was talking to you about Yuki's interview and Liam Lawson's interview. They're all choosing their words very carefully, but the bottom line is he's doing what nobody is expecting in the team, which is taking a car that is not right yet and making good of it.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I want to talk a little bit, before we talk about some of the rest of the teams and qualifying and everything else, I want to talk about where we are, because we have to give reverence to Suzuka. Because like Christian was just saying, Max, I mean, it is just one of those tracks that on the Wheel to Wheel show on Wednesday, I was talking to Chris. I was like, if somebody asked me this week, they said, what's your favorite F1 race? Where would you go right now?
Yeah.
And I think it would be Suzuka.
It's funny.
It's not just a track, it's the people, the culture, the food,
and
everything.
I've been to the race back in the Schumacher eras, but back in the mid-90s, and it is really quite special. There's no question. And you're right, the fans absolutely adore Formula One, and I was saying to you that this is, I'm a big Lawson fan, but I am really pleased for Yuki to be in the position he's in front of his home crowd for his first race with this team. Of course, it's not going to go, all the way he wants it. It is a tough car to drive. Maybe he's got a better chance than Liam. It seems to be, and it seems that now that the dust has settled, Liam was definitely sort of losing it a little bit in terms of confidence, and so therefore wasn't able to get the car to perform in the window. We heard him straight away. Yuki in P1 was within a tenth of Max, and then with all the stoppages and the fires and all the rest of it, I actually think he's done a hell of a job. He missed out in qualifying, but there's reasons for that, and Horner explained.
Yeah, and Bob, you've been to Suzuka, haven't you?
Oh yeah. I was back in the Mansell and Senna and Prost days.
Wow.
Started going there. Yeah, it's a wonderful place. Really, one of the top 3 or 4 tracks in Formula One, in my view. And it's old, but it's so unique in so many ways. The location, as you've already mentioned, the fans are fantastic. The town is wonderful. It's easy to get to and easy to move around in, which is a little surprising considering how few people spoke English when I first went there. Now I understand it's a lot different. My daughter just came back in the last 6 months from a short stay in Japan, and it's just a terrific place. The people are humble, the culture is wonderful, and it's a hell of a racetrack. 3.6 miles around, designed by the Dutchman John Hugenholtz, and it doubles back on itself. It's a figure 8 track, essentially, and it's cool. It's just unique in so many different ways.
Yeah, one of the longest on the circuit. I think it's like 5th or 6th at 3.6 kilometers.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, when I first went to Japan to cover motorsport, we were told we couldn't hire a rental car because all the signs were in Japanese. So unless you spoke Japanese, you wouldn't have a clue what way to go. They're not anymore, and everybody does speak, and trains, everything. It's all in English and Japanese.
Yeah, my son just bought a Nissan GTT R34, and it came from Japan, and it has like the Japanese toll thing that talks to you in Japanese. but really, the point is the car looked absolutely flawless. You could see a Japanese businessman driving this car for the last 25 years and taking care of it. It was absolutely flawless. And I just think that, the whole culture intrigues me.
You could. I mean, I'm not a shopper, but I tell you, whenever I go to Japan, I'm fascinated by what the shops sell, how they put it out there, the intricacy and in design in Japan. You can buy a notebook, but it's not just a regular notebook, or a pencil or whatever it might be. There's something really quite intriguing about the Japanese culture that I really enjoy.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying, is that it's just a bucket list for me, and I think it would definitely be on my top 1 or 2. But
and the crowd's been huge. You've seen the fans, all the pictures on TV of the fans, wearing the hats and with their signs and their outfits and everything. They're spending a lot of money on merch, and I guarantee when everybody showed up first thing in the morning, the fans were lined up outside the gates, quietly, waiting patiently to be allowed in. There was no jamming at the gates, no chanting, no craziness. They're very respectful and very enthusiastic. Probably the top 2 fan bases in Formula One, I would say, are the Japanese and the Mexicans.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Their level of enthusiasm, Speaking of Suzuka, I'm taking a look, and it
doesn't look wet, does it?
It does not look wet, and there's nothing on fire, either one. So both of those yet. The fire.
Isn't that amazing?
It really was amazing.
All 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
To be honest, though, that is a problem, though. With 20 cars and no wet, are we going to see more of this? That's what worries me.
Well, it's been raining, but you're right, it could. But my point is that why didn't they just sprinkler the track leading up to the race for the months ahead before it was obviously dry and a drought-like scenario, but I don't know. That was just, I don't know enough about it, but, and of course, why didn't they try to dampen it, or just too much area?
I don't know.
And keep in mind too that apparently what's causing the sparks are the titanium pieces under the car that hold the legality plank in place. And so if you've got titanium sparks flying off the track, and that's not like an ember from a burning bush or something. Those things are really hot and they don't cool quickly. They're not extinguished easily. It's not as bad as magnesium, but it's still something that's going to bounce off into this dry grass and stay really hot for quite a while. So I can see why it would easily start a fire if the conditions were right.
Another reason might be that we used to have this race later in the year, I think September, October time, and therefore that's why it's caught them out a little bit, because I know we've had it early before, but
last year was This is the earliest it's ever been by one day.
Okay.
Because last year, just
Same
because
time.
of the way the calendar falls. So yeah.
But I do think that maybe lack of rain. I don't know what the weather's been doing there, but things have been topsy turvy of late. So it may be just they've gone through a really dry winter.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of suffering that in Texas a little bit.
All right, well, let's get our first break in. You're listening to Speed City F1 on ESPN on SiriusXM. We'll be back after these messages. All right, let's check in with the YouTubers. Kevin Kelly first in. Drivers Parade, dry track. Yep, first thing we looked for, KK.
Yeah, hey, YouTubers, I hope you realize we've got a superstar with Chris Medland on our hands. I hope you've been watching the TV.
Already commenting about it.
We're good.
Hey, everybody watching right now, anybody surprised that Chris is where he is?
No.
Guarantee you nobody's here is surprised. Let's see. ALX, greetings from Minnesota. ALX, Andy P's here. Teen W's here. Bill Ricker's here. Bill says good evening or whatever. Yeah, that's about right. Don't know where you are. Let's see. Kevin Kelly said Max did it with no purple. Oh, we should play that ghost
sectors.
Yeah.
No purple. Right.
Do that.
Yeah, I watched that. That ghost mode where they show the cars superimposed on each other. F1 did it on Twitter. Let's see. Andy P says, literally staring at the time and trying to figure out how he did that. Amazing stuff. Yeah, it's just no doubt. Yeah, Chris and Hinchcliffe, and they were all doing their predictions beforehand. Nobody said Max. Nobody even breathed Max.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. Bill Ricker says, I remember figure eight tracks with actually stock cars racing in reversed. Last one moving wins. And he says, I also remember 8 tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember 8 tracks.
Yes, sir. Todd Dauber says, I'll be surprised if no one gets disqualified for plank wear with all the marks left on this track. Interesting.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like happened at Austin 2 years ago.
Yeah. And also,
I think track limits could be an issue too.
Yeah. Andy P.
The track's been washed. It's green, and the traction's not going to be what it was at the end of P3.
I'll tell you one thing I saw look really tasty. Sainz has been given a penalty for blocking Hamilton, right? So starts 15th. Right. But look who's ahead of him, Lawson and Tsunoda. So those three.
Here we go.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. About 40 minutes from the start of the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix. Jon Massengale, Bob Varsha, Jonathan Green with you. And gentlemen, I want to start moving down the order from qualifying yesterday a little bit and ask a question of both of you. Now that Max Verstappen has done this, is McLaren still the favorite? Start with you, Johnny.
For the championship?
For the win. For the win today, this weekend.
Yes, because they tactically are in a better position. Now, it could also bite them as well. But I think there will be a conversation. It's already been mentioned on the run-up to the Grand Prix that, hey, guys, get through the first corner. The idea is we have to stop Verstappen because he's only a few points off. A win here today changes the championship again and suddenly makes it, a three-way battle rather than a two-way battle. So I think, McLaren would be wise to get one of their cars ahead of Verstappen.
Bob, what about you? Still the favorites for the win today?
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan. Strength in numbers. You heard Christian Horner say a team with two equally competitive drivers can split strategies. They can do a lot more than a team that's relying on one driver. And let's not ignore history. For the past 3 days, the McLarens have been dominant. They have led every session. So they've got, two bullets in the guns, my old colleague Calvin Fish would say.
Yeah.
Mercedes may be in the same boat after what Antonelli put in qualifying. Ferrari, if Lewis gets his problems resolved and can run up with Leclerc, it's going to be 2 against 1. And this weekend, nobody has had an awful lot of lengthy track time. With all these interrupted sessions, nobody has had a real full book of notes and strategic points. And everybody was so surprised by Verstappen's pole. There's no guarantee that the car is going to remain that competitive for the length of a Grand Prix here at Suzuka. So, there's an awful lot of questions to be answered, and it all starts with that incredibly quick first corner.
Yeah. Talking about McLaren, I'm thinking about the all this discussion about. There was headlines this weekend, and there was an interview on F1 TV just before we came on talking about the competition between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and how it's this very copacetic, very friendly, it's not the normal head-to-head hate you, can't even look at that side of the garage kind of thing. Do you think if it stays like it is, and it is a battle between the two McLarens and whoever, Max or whoever, Ferrari or Mercedes, do you think that McLaren can keep the peace?
Yes, because Zach is a racing guy. He gets it. He's also a good businessman. I think he's one of those team managers that I think could be a good CEO as well. Principal, I mean. And I think that he has brought both of these guys in. He knows what he's got. He always says, I've got the best lineup in Formula One, and it's hard to argue with that. But there's an inevitability to it. It's hard to say late at night. But there is. I mean, you can't, both guys are ambitious. Both guys want to be world champion. Both guys know that these windows, these sort of zones where you get into a season where the car is good enough to win a championship, if they didn't learn that last year from the Constructors' win, it's the end of the window in terms of we've got a new car in 26. Whoever wins 25 may not get another run at it again because we just don't know what's going to happen in 26.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a clip from Lando Norris from after qualifying. I was going to say yesterday. It's still the same day for us. It's almost tomorrow. But yeah, let's hear from Lando Norris.
Lando, how are you feeling about that final run?
Good. I mean, my final run was good. My second to last, not so good. But I'm happy. I feel like we both found the limit with the car in the end, and it's tough. Like when you're talking about 100th, it's so small that it's you always think there's 100th in it. But both of us, between Oscar and myself, as soon as we wanted to try and push it a little bit more, we both paid the price and made big mistakes and went slower. So I think we found a good limit with the car, but we struggled to progress a lot more from that. Whereas Max had the opposite. Max had the opposite in terms of he pushed a lot more on the last lap, he committed more, and he found lap time. So I think how our cars are handling are a little bit different, but we just weren't quite quick enough today.
Still a great spot to start in tomorrow. Potential for some rain. So how are you feeling about that? What's your thinking heading into the race?
It's quite a high potential for rain. In fact, it's going to rain. So I'm excited. I think we should be good in both conditions. I probably prefer if it's dry over the wet. Just because I think the wet will highlight some more of our weaknesses again in our car. But I'm excited for both. We were good in Australia when it was wet, and good in Australia when it was dry. So I'm excited for both.
Yeah, speaking of the weather, I looked about an hour ago, and it didn't look like we're going to get any rain at all.
It
looks cloudy, yeah,
and it's cool. Actually, it's actually pretty cool at the moment in Suzuka, which I don't know how much difference that will make. I'd like to get Chris's take on the cooler weather and who gets advantage there. We've often talked about Mercedes, liking the colder conditions.
Yes, the car seems to do well with that, but yeah, I just wanted to play Lando just because he talking in this discussion about how he's not a cutthroat. He's not a Senna or a Verstappen or a Schumacher kind of cutthroat, and it doesn't come across that way either.
Yeah, and interestingly, following on what you started with about Piastri was interviewed just before you came in on ESPN TV by Ted Kravitz, and he actually said, yes, we jokingly talked a few years ago about what a great partnership and friendship that we have, and what will it be like when we're actually fighting for a championship? And he goes, and now we are. And he goes, because basically Ted threw in, he said, don't you think we can have a championship where you guys are best of mates, and it's enjoyable to watch you guys go at it, but in a friendly, sporting way? And he tried to sort of say, basically, he said, yes, it would be nice, but we'll see.
Yes. And in fact, that's what made me ask the question earlier, because I saw that right when I was walking in. I thought, is it going to stay that way? But anyway, I don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes. All right. Well, let's talk. I wanted to talk about Mercedes, just kind of going down the qualifying yesterday, because Mercedes looked good this weekend. And, of course, the natural discussion is going to be a little bit more about Antonelli. But what do you think about Mercedes? Start with you, Greeny.
Yeah, I mean, I keep having to remind myself that Mercedes are behind McLaren using their engine.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story, because that rarely happens, that you get a customer beating you on a regular basis. Clearly, the engine's very good.
My thought immediately to that, though, is that what did Christian Horner say about turning the car upside down?
Yeah.
He listed everything. He never even mentioned the engine.
No.
There's all those things, and the field is so close right now that all those factors, aero, springs, everything can turn the car completely fast or slow, and the engine is not going to help you.
No, very true. And this is I think, I've been listening to Jack Villeneuve a lot over the weekend, and obviously he knows this circuit well. And there's no question, it's a driver's circuit. Everybody says it. The corners, they're iconic. Bob just described, going there as culturally. But I think the track has a big part to play in it. Like Spa, it's special. And it's special for the drivers. They like driving this. And if you've ever done a sim of Suzuka, it really is. I mean, to go through 130R flat out, or at least, force yourself to take it flat out, because you really don't want to in a sim. I mean, even on a sim, it just is really, really quick.
Really scary too. Yeah,
like Eau Rouge.
Yeah,
like
Eau Rouge.
Exactly like Eau Rouge. Exactly.
That's a good analogy. Well, let's hear from one of the Mercedes drivers. Let's start with George Russell. This is after qualifying earlier today.
I'm pretty disappointed with the last lap, to be honest. I tried something different with the tyres, trying to get them a bit cooler to be better at the end of a lap, and ultimately went too far and had no grip at the beginning of the lap. So, pay the price. P5 isn't terrible, but I would have liked to have been higher up.
What's your thinking for the race tomorrow? There could be some rain in play as well.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen tomorrow. And you could probably see another Melbourne-like race potentially. So, as I said, disappointed now, but P5, we can fight from there.
Yep.
And you know what? I want to go straight into Kimi Antonelli's interview too, because. Okay. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this is an intrigue. We talked about the two teammates. Mercedes are in a really good spot to have different strategies, get their pit stops, work with Antonelli. I mean, and in their case, I mean, I think it would be a straight fight for whoever's the leading Mercedes, because they're starting alongside each other. So whoever gets to the first corner, the strategy can be put into place. And if it's Antonelli, I would have thought that Russell will go, okay, yeah, fair enough, that he's got the best chance or whatever. And if it's Antonelli, he's the young kid, he'll do whatever they say.
All right, let's hear from Antonelli.
Kimi, your first time at Suzuka, P6 on the grid, just behind your teammate George. How are you feeling about that session?
Yeah, I mean, I can be quite happy with it. Considering how FP went, I'm not going to lie, I was quite lost and had very little confidence heading to qualifying. So definitely, it was not an easy one, but happy with how I progressed. And definitely, I think I maximized the result.
Touched on it there. You take a lot of satisfaction from that progression throughout practice and heading into qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. FP1 went actually quite well. But then FP2 and FP3 was a step back on my side. I couldn't build the confidence I wanted, and definitely, I arrived in qualifying with a bit uncertain as well on what I could have achieved. But I was happy to get in Q3 and to put a decent lap at the end. But of course, still a lot of work to do.
Thanks, Kimi. Good luck tomorrow.
So it's still hard to believe that he's 18 years old.
I'm really impressed with where he is in race 3.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you see the photo of Kimi and his younger sister?
Yeah,
Maggie, I think her name was. And that actually went all around.
That's great.
Our photographer got it, and I tweeted it. I think Casey's going to try to put it up.
What an eye opener to go to Japan at that age.
Yeah, and it was just a cute overload. His big brother taking his sister through the F1 paddock. I thought it was really cool.
Oh, she'd be so proud of him.
Oh yeah. All right, well, let's get a quick break in. When we come back, we'll be less than 30 minutes from the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix. Back after these messages. All right, YouTubers, let's see what's going on out here. All right, let's see. Andy P. Extremely happy for Chris. The F1 TV crew is leaving Sky in the dust this weekend. What is that? Oh, was that your... let's see. Kevin Kelly says, no Sky pregame on ESPN. What are we on? We're on ESPN. Oh, we're on ESPNU. Okay.
Which stands for university, I think.
Yeah. They just...
What happened to ESPN Plus or ESPN Extra?
Well, no, we're talking about on the television. I'm saying, what are we on? Not on the radio, but what we're watching. Sorry. Alex says, thanks gents for the work you do. We certainly appreciate listening to your insight. Watching the races are more enjoyable with a better grasp of the off-track stories unfolding contemporaneously. Thank you very much, Alex.
We'll take it. We'll take it. Thank you.
Yep. Well, there's some people complaining about others. I'm not going to bash everybody else.
What are they complaining about?
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, look, everybody's got their opinion on this problem. Like, Joe Voister says, problem that had your seat moving. Yeah. Well, he had all sorts of problems that were.
Well, we know he's got a big set.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. But yeah, that was. You saw his face.
Oh, he was in pain.
He was definitely in pain. He was not just, it wasn't just a little bit of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought about that. I remember doing some, I did Skip Barber open wheel, and those center belts, you have to place them just right, to not hurt yourself. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that would be a very uncomfortable ride at 185 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and 4 or 5 Gs in the corners.
Yeah, 5+, as we saw.
And
all right, coming back.
A couple of sessions with them.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. We are getting you ready for the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix. And for our next interview, we sent Chris Medland over there as usual. He's over there like we were talking about, but he caught up with the Cadillac F1 team principal, Graham Loudon. And we actually got almost 11 minutes with him. And so we're going to play the first half of this, and we'll play the second half probably in the post-race show. But Chris caught up with him a few hours ago. So let's hear from Cadillac F1 team principal Graham Loudon.
Well, Graham, thanks very much for joining us here in the Suzuka paddock, where it's very windy, so we're sheltering in the FIA hospitality right now. But I just want to start off by asking, how have the first few months of this year been for you across your announcement as team principal and then confirmation of Cadillac coming into Formula One?
Very busy few months, Chris. But very productive and rewarding as well. I'm happy that we're out of the team entry process phase. That was a very thorough process, but also extremely draining actually for everybody involved. And so now, although we're busy doing constructive things and building the team further, because we were already a couple of years into constructing the team. But yeah, we've got a long list of things to do, but as I say, it's now that the entry's confirmed, it's full steam ahead, and it's productive and rewarding work that's on the list.
Yeah, I imagine it's so busy though. And you were in Australia for the first race of the season, you were in China for the second one, you're here in Japan. What's on your job list, I guess, when you're at tracks? What do you have to do here?
Well, it's an interesting balance actually, because so when there's 24 races in the year, there's so much of Formula One happens actually at the track in terms of meetings, both with the regulators, with the FIA, also with Formula One, but also the other teams as well. And there are there's various meetings that happen away from the circuit, Formula One Commission meetings, World Motorsport Council meetings, all those kind of things. But there's a lot that happens at the track just simply because everybody's in the same place, and it's quite easy to call a meeting. Now that's easy for the other teams because they're here doing another job at the moment, which is racing on track. We're not, and so it's to some extent there's a little bit of guesswork as to where we need to be this year and when. But then there's a bunch of meetings that we need to have in preparation for next year, and also in particular the first two races in Melbourne and Suzuka. Melbourne and Shanghai. We had a lot of people along from our ownership, from TWG Motorsports and from General Motors as well, and they'll be familiar faces in the paddock throughout this year, because we don't want to turn up at the first race in Melbourne 26, and assuming that is the first race, and for people to not know who everybody is, and vice versa for in particular senior people in the ownership of the team to not be familiar with Formula One. So it does involve a little bit of travelling this year, but it won't be every race, that's for sure.
I love the way you said a little bit of travelling, and you've done the first three that are long haul flights. Yeah. And now we're talking about you having to maybe go to Bahrain as well for the next one for meeting reasons. So it must be full on. In general though, right now, kind of where is your focus? Is there a specific area, or is it just so wide that
it's really wide at the moment. Recruitment is extremely important at the moment. We have on average over one person a day joining the team. So we have a weekly meeting every Wednesday morning at the factory, which involves everybody, or at least everyone who's there, and those who aren't there join it remotely, where we just have a chat, tell people what's going on, which is really important, and also we welcome the new starters. So I think this week there was 14, I think it was, something like that. So it's recruitment is really key at the moment, and looking at the senior management team, there are still some roles that we are looking to fill, and so in a world of wearing multiple hats, you've got to kind of wear some multiple hats at the minute, just to cover some of those roles. But we're getting more and more people on board all the time. New team manager joined just this week. So each time somebody joins, they're bringing fresh ideas, fresh energy, and it's great to see the team taking shape.
And that team manager's Pete Crawler?
Pete Crawler, yeah.
Who was at Haas?
Yeah. So he was at Haas for about 10 years, I think. Well, in fact, for the whole life of the Haas F1 team, and he was involved in their first season back in 2016, I guess it would have been. So he's been through that loop. Everyone in the team at the moment is effectively experiencing two things. One is life inside a Formula One team, but also it's life inside of a startup business to some extent as well. Although obviously we're a couple of years in now, but it takes a certain kind of attitude to really flourish in that kind of environment, and so those are the kind of people that we've been looking to get on board, and so I'm very happy that Pete's on board, and that's one more hat I can take off my head and pass on to him.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was the part one of that 11 minutes, and we'll have the rest of that in the post race show, but we'll have it all up on YouTube.
Yeah, and of course our own Dave O'Neill worked with Graham.
Yes.
And with that
Crawler.
Yep. At Haas, and now is with Junkers. Yeah, I mean, I could see Dave getting back involved in Formula One potentially.
I think his phone rang a few times and may still be. But he's got a gig right now, though.
Sure.
Yeah, he definitely does, and it's a
good one too.
It's a good one, and it's a very heavy responsibility that he's got now. But having said that, just listening to Graham Loudon talk about watching the team come together, I cannot imagine what it's like when they're, at full strength. There'll probably be 1,000 or so people involved, and they've got all these people coming on all the time. So you have to, put them in the right place and make sure that they, communicate among themselves. And you've got all the paperwork and yada, 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 all those other things that are a part of any business, HR, legal.
Yeah.
Where do you get your equipment, and who keeps track of all this stuff? And where do you get really good people to do the extremely complex logistical work on behalf of a Formula One team that's about to go gallivanting all around the world to 24 cities in 21 countries? I mean, I can't imagine. Must be fascinating.
Yeah.
I hope there's some TV cameras around and we get to see it someday.
And I don't know if the folks watching on YouTube, they saw the flash up of the screen. The part 2 is where Graham Loudon talks about the drivers. And he actually says some things that he gave a little more away than I thought he would.
Okay.
And he talks about American drivers and several of the Formula One drivers that you would think would be on that list.
It's going to be an interesting lineup. There's no question.
It's going to be fascinating. All right, Bob, Varsha, would you like to go ahead and jump into the Varsha grid with us?
Well, sure. I'm a little shy because we've talked a lot of the statistical nuances of this grid, but what the heck? Let's give it a shot. On row 1, big surprise, although it seems really strange to say that when your pole sitter is Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. 4-time world champ grabbed his 42nd career pole and 4th straight at Suzuka with a lap at 126.983. Now get this, that's 1.2 seconds quicker than his own pole time from a year ago and just over a second under Lewis Hamilton's all-time lap record. And as we noted earlier, Fernando Alonso said later, only he could do it. P2 is Lando Norris, Verstappen's great rival in the McLaren. Now, in case you think Max might just drive off to his 4th consecutive victory at Suzuka, consider the championship leader Norris was just 12 thousandths of a second slower. But he'll have to stop running wide at the second Degner right-hander or risk a track limits penalty. That seems to be his bête noire right now. Row 2, P3, Oscar Piastri in the second McLaren. One or the other of the Baia cars led every practice. And the China winner 2 weeks ago posted a qualifier just 32 thousandths of a second off his teammate Norris. Unlike Norris, though, who said he took all that his car would give him, Aussie Piastri said there's more that he left on the table. So that's a little ominous. It's going to be fun to watch that start.
Yeah.
P4, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Coming off their double disqualification in China, Leclerc came within a quarter of a second of the top 3 with redemption on his mind. Why? Well, he has good reason to think he can do well here. His previous 3 finishes here were a 3rd and 2 4th places. Moving on to row 3, P5, George Russell in the first of the Mercedes. Another 10th behind the Ferrari, but disappointed, as you heard earlier, when he said he wanted to be better than 5th. But he is the creator of the viral beam known as the T-pose, and he played with his tires. He used just one set in Q1 to leave himself extra fresh rubber for the pole fight. He, like Yuki Tsunoda, said he just did not get the warm-up right. So he started with tires that are colder than he needed, and he paid for it. But he's going for his 3rd straight podium to start the season. P6, right next to Russell, is his teammate, Kimi Antonelli. In his 3rd Grand Prix, this 18-year-old prodigy got within a quarter of a second of his teammate running used tires due to using 2 sets to escape Q1. That's the kind of weekend the kid has had. But the Mercedes are looking good. Row 4, P7, Isaac Hadjar at the Racing Bulls. The rookie's Australian disaster must seem like a long time ago now. He was never out of the top 10 in practice, finished as high as third in one of the practices. Despite that severe pain from issues with his seat belts, he has a big opportunity to impress today. P8, Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. Eighth may be kind of misleading, though, for the 7-time champ. He suffered a slide on his key hot lap using too much curb, but practice finishes of fourth, and sixth should bolster his legions of Japanese fans for the race here. I think Lewis is probably the most popular driver with the Japanese fans. Row 5, P9, Alex Albon in the Williams. I call him the quiet racer. Somehow, the Williams stalwart, Albon, just goes about his business. We don't talk much about him. He revels in his improved race car. He retired from his last 3 starts at Suzuka, but his only other effort saw him finish 4th. P10, Oliver Bearman for Haas, the best qualifying performance this season for the British Rook, who might have started higher even, but for running wide in the long right-hand sweeper in turn 1. Row 6, P11, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. The Frenchman was among the top 10 in the final 2 practices, interrupted as they were, but he failed to advance out of Q2 by a mere 49 thousandths of a second behind Albon's Williams. That's how close these things have been. P12 is Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. The 2-time champ caused a red flag in practice by beaching his car. He struggled to 13th in qualifying before a penalty to Carlos Sainz moved him up 1 place. Row 7, P13, Liam Lawson for Racing Bulls. After a warm welcome back to the Red Bull B team, the Kiwi's first order of business will be repairing his reputation after the move back from the Red Bull garage. He started by beating his former teammate and replacement in qualifying. That, of course, is Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull for his first time. P14, and this is weird. On his Red Bull debut in his home Grand Prix, Tsunoda was an honest 6th place in practice 1, according to the team. They didn't do any tricks to make him look better. He then ran 18th and 9th in the next 2 abbreviated sessions, but mistimed the warm-up like Russell did and qualified 1 spot behind the guy he replaced, Lawson. Moving on to row 8, P15, Carlos Sainz in the Williams, just 14 thousandths off Gasly's time for 12th on the grid, but the Spaniard was judged to have impeded Hamilton in Q2 and docked 3 grid places down to 15th. P16, Nico Hulkenberg for Sauber. They are still searching for answers at Sauber, or as I call them, the pre-Audis. 12th and 13th in practice 2 may be a gleam of potential in a very dark tunnel for the team that once gave us Kimi Räikkönen way back when. Row 9, P17, Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber. The teammates so far have been with a few tenths of each other all weekend, so the problem is clearly the car and not the drivers. P18, Esteban Ocon for Haas, a bump in the road for the American team, who have improved a ton this season already. And with his teammate Holly Bierman way up ahead in 10th, the veteran Frenchman Ocon knows he has a car that can do much more. Row 10, P19, Jack Doohan in the Alpine. The nightmare continues for the second-generation racer from down under. Yet another crash, a massive shunt put down to the driver, Doohan, failing to close his DRS before turning into turn 1. Loss of downforce, back end steps out, whammo. A long rebuild for the team with nothing to show for it from P19.
Scary crash.
Finally, P20, little puzzling, I think. Lance Stroll in the second Aston Martin. Yeah, he was complaining about vibrations, one apparently from a loose wheel in practice, for which he could have been penalized, but he wasn't. But the car just hasn't been working for him. He doesn't have enough pace either, but we'll wait and see what happens after the rain changed the nature of this racetrack and the temperatures turned cold.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bob Varsha. We're going to get in a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be very close to the start of the Grand Prix. Stay tuned. Back after these messages. All right. Still live here on YouTube. Everybody's getting ready. 16 people watching, and we're going to come back with 10 minutes. By the way, we have We got Bradley Lord and Io Komatsu. 2 interviews we want. They're just short interviews. We're going to play both of those.
Good. Yep, get them in.
Yep, and
Bradley Lord's an interesting guy. He's been around this business a long time. He used to be a PR guy for Goodyear Tires.
That's right.
back in the
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
By the way, did you guys know the background of Graham Loudon? He's about 60. I think he's 59, but he has a very interesting tech background. He started a communications company. It's kind of an IP-based communications company that is for the transportation industry, in and out of all the racing that he's done. And he founded this company, and it's a huge company. And he was the founder, or co-founder anyway. But he's got a really fascinating background. I had forgotten that I glanced at it when he was first announced, and Dave O'Neill, like we were talking earlier, he knows him really well. He worked side by side with him.
Well, and not just at Haas, at Marussia as well.
Yeah.
So they've known each other a long time.
Yep, and it was called, I'm looking for the name of that company because it's still around, and it's still a very big company.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
This track has to bring up some very bad memories for Graham Loudon, who was the key guy at Marussia.
Yeah.
Back when Jules Villeneuve, Jules Bianchi,
yeah.
lost his life at this racetrack.
Yep.
Very sad.
What year was that? 14?
Was it 2017?
I was thinking a little earlier than that. I was thinking it was like 14 or 15, but anyway, yeah. All right,
Helmets
coming
on.
back.
Helmets on.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. We're going to go straight into an interview that Chris Medland did for us a little bit ago, because Io Komatsu is the boss, the team principal of the Haas F1 team, but he's in his home race in Japan. So let's hear from Io Komatsu.
Ayo, thank you so much for giving us your time pre-race, because you're a bit of a megastar here in Japan, aren't you?
I don't know, Japanese fans are so enthusiastic and supportive, and I really enjoy coming here. Fans are absolutely amazing.
Yesterday must have been pretty special as well, because we had a packed house for qualifying and Ollie put the car in Q3. How impressive was that performance?
Oh, that was very impressive. We started this weekend not having enough performance, and the Friday we worked quite a lot on the car. Every single time we are learning something, we're improving the car. But if you look at the end of Friday, there's no way you could have get into Q3. But then we had certain plans to look at in FP3 with the disrupted session. We didn't get the lap time, but there was enough hint. Okay, that's the direction we need to go. So we made a further adjustment for qualifying, and then only just execution. That Q2 run 2 was amazing.
I mean, around such a special driver's track as well to put it all together. But obviously a different matter to do it over a race distance. Can he stay up there in the top 10 and score points today? I think it's more on the team side, to be honest. We know what he can do. You saw Shanghai, how he drove in that race, so he can deliver. It's if we can put the right car balance, then to look after the tires. Yeah, I think we should have race pace. But again, it's such a tiny margin. If you remember Shanghai sprint, we completely killed the tires and went backwards. That's because we didn't get the setup right. Then we adjusted the setup for Sunday's race, and then that's how we could perform. So it is really tiny margins that is making big difference. So as a team, we just got to get the car balance right. Then on Esteban's side, starting a bit further back, is it kind of take a few more risks strategically? Can you do anything different? Because it's not that easy to overtake around here, is it?
No, it's very difficult because again, the dry race would be one stop. So when it's a one-stop race, and then it's pretty clear which tires to choose, it's only a matter of deciding which tire you're going to start on, right? And that is really depending on the condition. So yeah, it's not easy, but of course we never give up. We'll do our best.
And just finally, one thing you did bring here was a new floor that you were running on Friday, trying to address some of the issues you noticed in Melbourne. Has that given you the answers you wanted and the step forward you wanted?
Yes, and that was really encouraging, to be honest, because we had to shortcut the process. We had to accept certain risks because otherwise we didn't have anything here. Then looking at the scale of the issue in Melbourne, that wasn't the option. We had to bring something here, but really full credit to the engineers. I think their judgment was right. So in FP2, it was 100% clear that it was an improvement. Whether that's a tenth or 2 tenths, it's very difficult to say, but we saw a clear difference. So that's really pleasing. It's a huge team effort.
It's very impressive, and I guess it's partly as well with Toyota's home race here. You really wanted to deliver this weekend.
Yes, it's that as well, but also just looking at the team, it's a race 1, clear issue at the high-speed corner in Melbourne, and then Suzuka, sector 1's, littered with high-speed corner. So if we didn't do anything, we are completely at the mercy of the track. And if we had the same issue as Melbourne, there's nothing we could have done, right? Then if you look at Melbourne, we are dead last, but not by small margin, by like 6 tenths. Nobody can accept that. So we had to do something, and then luckily, the modification we made, I wouldn't say it's a luck because it's judgment call, but it worked. But it's not the whole solution. So, in terms of full package, we brought something that is, let's say, low risk, that we can shortcut the process to here. But then for a more medium-term solution, we had to go through more iterations in CFD and Winton, which is what we're doing. But that we're not going to see for another several races.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that, but we'll keep an eye on you today as well. Good luck today.
Thank you very much.
The more I hear from him, the more I like him.
I know I'm a big fan of his. I get to meet him that one time in the garage.
I've met him a couple of times.
All right, let's go straight into this interview that Chris Medland did with Mercedes. Bradley Lord.
I've got Bradley Lord, the Mercedes team representative this weekend. Well, all weekends, but Toto Wolff's not here, so you've got moved up the food chain even further, Bradley. And for anyone who doesn't understand what a big deal you are within this team, I hear you signed a giant picture of your own face this morning.
It's quite mortifyingly embarrassing when someone turns up with a big picture of your face printed out, and they were very keen to ask me to scribble on it, so I did, and have had the Mickey taken out of me suitably ever since. So yeah, just as you'd expect in a healthy Formula 1 team.
That's why it was my first question as well. I was told I had to ask it to get this interview based on your, I guess technically acting head of comms if you're now the team representative?
That sounds about right, yeah, and it sounds entirely in character for that particular individual.
Well, let's talk.
All right, guys, we got to cut that one short.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
We are just about to go out to the BBC feed, and but let's do our predictions really quick. Johnny Green, let's start with you.
Norris, Piastri, Verstappen.
All right, I am going to go Piastri, Verstappen, Leclerc. I'm going to write that one down.
What was it, John?
Piastri, Verstappen, Leclerc.
Okay.
What about you, Bob Varsha?
Well, I was going to agree with you wholeheartedly, but I can't bring myself to do that. So I'm going to say, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc.
All right.
Okay. Any other predictions? We still got about a minute or so here. Anybody?
Yes, watch out for, keep an eye on the midfield. Watch out for 12th, 13th, and 14th. Or is it 13th, 14th, and 15th, which is Tsunoda, Lawson, and Sainz coming through.
So who's going to finish ahead? Is it going to be Tsunoda in the Red Bull or Lawson in the Racing Bulls?
I know who's got more to lose.
Yeah.
Boy, ain't that the truth. Who's going to be the top rookie?
Yeah.
That's a good one, too.
I mean, it's hard to get a bet against Antonelli at this point.
In that one.
But,
shout out to
but Hadjar.
It's got Hadjar.
Yep.
Hadjar right there with him. That's
he's in a good spot.
Kid.
Yeah, Hadjar really impressed me. Really impressed me.
No doubt. All the rookies are. I mean, I know Lawson. Look, Lawson was in this.
He's still a rookie.
He's still a rookie, but he's also in this crazy world that he's in. Having started those two races.
Who would want it?
So
who would want it?
I want all the rookies to do good, but they all can't do good because somebody's got to do bad. So we got Lance Stroll.
Right.
We got Lance Stroll at the back holding up that candle, so that mantle. All right, we got just a few seconds. Any other final thoughts, Greeny? Anybody that you want to watch out for that we haven't talked about?
No, not really. I'm interested to see tactically what Alonso does because Aston Martin are nowhere, really. So they're likely to throw the dice a bit.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We appreciate you tuning in, however you tuned in today, and we will be back here for our post-race show late night. But stay right here on Channel 81, SiriusXM, ESPN Extra, and we'll talk to you after the race.